It was one of the standout scoops for famed UFO reporter George Knapp. His interviews with Bob Lazar, a young scientist who claimed to have worked at Area 51. But was Bob Lazar telling the truth? George put him to the test in a series of reports.
Lazar agreed to undergo a polygraph exam as part of this report. Polygrapher Ron Slay asked about the technology Lazar had seen.
Did you knowingly lie when you said you had actually seen anti-gravity propulsion in operation?
No.
The results of this exam were inconclusive. Lazar appeared to be truthful on one test, deceitful on a second. Slay recommended that a second examiner be brought in. Polygrapher Terry Tavernetti runs a corporate security operation and is a former Los Angeles police officer. He put Lazar through 4 tests and concluded there was no attempt to deceive.
And I left there thinking that I feel we do have some credibility to what the subject had to say. And that's when I went to some of my colleagues.
Tavernetti sent the test results to a third polygrapher who agreed the results appeared truthful. The charts were then sent to a 4th examiner who did not agree, suggesting Lazar might be relating information he'd learned from someone else. The polygraphers conferred and decided they would not issue a final statement on truthfulness until more specific testing can be conducted, and that's where it stands. Tavernetti believes that difficulty in determining Lazar's truthfulness stems from the fear that was drilled into him.
I think we're talking about a subject here that is so far-reaching, and it is so emotional. And when you're dealing with emotions, this is polygraph, because we're dealing in polygraph, you're looking at fear. The fear of getting caught telling a lie because something bad will happen to you if you do.
Well, I am telling the truth. I've tried to prove that. What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. You're talking about contact, physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence. That's got to be the biggest event in history, period.
And it's real.
And it's real and it's there. And I had an extremely small part in it, but I'm convinced that what I saw is absolute proof of that. There is no way we could have created those systems. There's no way we could have made the discs, the power supplies, anything to go with them.
You believe his story, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've got to know him pretty well over the last couple of months, and I believe he's telling the truth.
George's connection to Bob Lazar led other tipsters to start calling him. But again, there was intimidation that made his quest to learn more increasingly difficult.
I had people call me during those projects, those first 2, who offered to give me information about reverse engineering flying saucers. 6 of them, right in a row, were visited. As soon as they talked to me, they got visited the next day by people proclaiming to be government agents who told them, shut the hell up.
Even one of the polygraph examiners, former police officer Terry Tavernetti, says shortly after his involvement with Lazar was made public, his employers were contacted.
The corporate offices where I'm employed received a telephone call from a government agency wanting to know why I was getting involved in something that I shouldn't be. And I asked, well, what agency? What was said? Did they identify themselves? And I said, because I'll be more than happy to talk to them. And I was refused this information, told that he didn't know, meaning my boss.
Tavernetti says his house was also burglarized around the time he did Lazar's polygraph.
As an investigator of over 20 years, I don't believe in coincidences. There's a reason for everything. I mean, could it have been a random residential burglary? Yes.
One case, the source was a cop. He worked at the courthouse, and she worked at the courthouse as a court reporter. And he said, she told me one time over lunch that she had worked for a defense contractor and heard this information about Roswell and wreckage and bodies and it being stored out in the Nevada desert. I asked this cop friend, would she talk to me? He goes, I think so, here's her number. So I called her and she gave me the broad strokes of her story. I said, can we meet? If I need to hide your face or your identity, change your name, I will. Very next day, she gets visited by these 2 guys. They told her, you know, you're still subject to your security clearance. And then they go, we know your daughter lives in LA and that you travel across the desert to see her and she comes to see you. It's a big desert out there. It'd be a shame if something happened to either one of you. This is a veiled threat, not so veiled threat. She was scared to death. Not only wouldn't talk to me, I called her 10 years later after she had left that job, and she still wouldn't talk to me.
So they were definitely listening to you.
They were listening to my phone, and it really pissed me off. I mean, they couldn't have obtained a warrant to do it, no judge in Nevada would approve something like that. They wanted to know who was offering to give me information. And it really made me mad. Again, I was already sort of on a crusade because of the FOIA documents, the paper trail, and the lies. This really got under my skin. And so we produced another 9-part series in May of 1990. And it hit even harder. And that sort of sealed the deal for me. It made me the UFO reporter, whether I like it or not.
Coming up next, the